Today there is interesting news from the United Kingdom. Here, Russian forces deployed their submarines and launched a covert operation right on the Britain's doorstep and dangerously close to the critical marine infrastructure. However, British forces have responded immediately to counter the Russian sabotage attempts, dispatching anti-sub jets to track them down. The United Kingdom recently revealed that it had been secretly following 3 Russian submarines operating in the North Atlantic. The vessels were observed right above critical undersea infrastructure, including communication cables and pipelines. In response, the UK conducted a military operation that lasted for more than a month and involved over 500 troops. The Defense Secretary warned that any attempt to interfere with or damage this infrastructure would trigger a firm response from Nato. Anti-submarine aircraft and naval forces have been deployed to actively track Russian submarines in combination with sonars deployed to the seabed and pressure them into leaving UK waters. Over the past 6 months, London has significantly increased patrol flights, and an anti-submarine Poseidon plane has flown over 450 hours near Russia's borders, including in the Barents Sea, the Baltic Sea, and around Kaliningrad. These aircraft are specifically used to track submarines by dropping sonobuoys, and since their intense deployment, the Russian vessels have been forced out of British waters without being able to damage critical infrastructure. The operation was intended to deter hostile actions and prevent potential sabotage, and while the UK's undersea network remains robust, the number of threats targeting it continues to increase, so additional defense measures were immediately put into action. Coordinated efforts between the United Kingdom and Norway, aimed at strengthening their joint response to Russian submarine activity in the North Atlantic, were started, as British Defense Secretary John Healey and Norwegian Defense Minister Tore Sandvik signed a new defense agreement focused on improving coordination against undersea threats. A key element of the agreement is the creation of a joint fleet comprising 13 vessels, 8 British and 5 Norwegian, tasked with maintaining a continuous patrol presence along the strategically important Faroe Island line. It is 500 kilometers long gap where Russian submarines must be intercepted and tracked before they disappear in the North Atlantic Ocean. These forces are responsible for monitoring and countering potential threats to critical undersea infrastructure, including cables and pipelines, as well as tracking Russian submarines operating in the region. The partnership also includes UK participation in Norway's plans to develop drones and autonomous systems for Arctic operations, further enhancing surveillance and response capabilities. In addition, Norway will supply naval strike missiles to the Royal Navy, and both countries will grant each other access to key military bases, Harstad and Bergen for the UK and Portsmouth for Norway, strengthening operational flexibility and interoperability. This cooperation is vital because Russia has repeatedly targeted European infrastructure before. In the Baltic Sea, Russian-linked operations have shown a systematic focus on damaging fiber optic telecommunications cables, power lines, and gas pipelines. In total, at least 6 suspected sabotage cases and damage to 11 undersea cables have been reported since the start of the war in Ukraine. A recurring feature of these incidents is the involvement of vessels associated with Russia's shadow fleet, which often display unusual behavior such as prolonged loitering or dragging anchors along known cable roads. Notably, many of the damage incidents have occurred en route to Russian ports or shortly after ships departed Russian waters. Forensic findings such as extended drag marks on the seabed and damaged anchors indicate that the damage was caused by deliberate actions. Additionally, Russia has spent years mapping undersea infrastructure in the Baltic using research vessels, submarines, and other specialized assets. The Russian naval doctrine explicitly identifies critical undersea infrastructure as a strategic vulnerability of the West that could be exploited, particularly in the early stages of a conflict, to disrupt communications and energy supplies. In order to respond to the repeated Russian violations, the UK, in coordination with its NATO partners, shifted its posture and moved from passive monitoring to active deterrence by deploying airborne units and vessels. The British objective is to show Russia that its submarines cannot roam in the UK's territorial waters with impunity and cause damage to vital communication cables. Overall, the latest British operation demonstrates a shift toward proactive deterrence, successfully forcing Russian submarines to withdraw while safeguarding critical infrastructure. Newly initiated UK-Norway cooperation will be even more essential, as Russian ships and submarines will continue to pose a serious threat to undersea cables. In the future, sustained patrols, advanced surveillance, and tighter maritime pressure will further constrain Russian submarine activities and reduce risks to regional stability. If you would like to explore other key developments today that we couldn't cover in this video, make sure to visit our interactive news map. The link to our interactive map is in the description below. Thank you for watching this update, and a special thanks to everyone already following our interactive map.